In this lesson, we're going to take our previously created 3 grill designs. We're actually going to go ahead and build these designs into the face bezel and see which one of the designs we really like to move forwards with. So just as a recap, if I zoom in a little here, remember we have grill 1, grill 2, and grill 3. Grill 1 looks like this. Grill 2 gives us this, and grill 3 gives us that kind of a look. So they all fall within the boundaries, just as we wanted them, of our actual face grill. And let me switch that off. And on my display here, let me turn off surface edges. And now we get a better view, really, of what's going on. All right, I'll turn those edges back on. I do like to see those so I know where different surfaces are starting. It sometimes helps to troubleshoot issues if you happen to have any. All right, so I'll go to my perspective viewport to work, and I'm going to switch everything off with the exception of this face bezel. So if I want to turn off multiple layers, I can highlight one of the layers, and I can just hold down Shift and click on the light bulb of the layers going all the way up to where I want to turn them off. You see they all switch off right away. And I'll come up here and switch off my main body, antenna, and volume knob. Actually, while I'm at it, I'm going to take those 3 layers and I'm going to move those down. Because right now we have a curve layer in between them. And my face bez, I'm going to move that down as well because we're going to make some multiples of this. So for my face bezel, we want to make some alternates or some options to this that highlight the 3 designs we have. I still want to be able to get back to my original design. We're always going to at some point need to kind of go back and redo things. So what I'll do is I'm going to copy this. I'm still just working on face bezel. And I'll hide it. And then I'll just paste it back in. So now if I go into my show hidden objects, now it's a bit of a mess, quite a few things here, but you can see there is this grill sitting in here. So no matter what we do, I've always got sort of a clean, uncut version of this grill hidden on another layer. And on this, I may even go as far just to keep this layer as is and make 3 copies of this. And I think that's what we'll do. So let's go ahead and we'll right-click on Face Bez, and I'm going to duplicate Layer and Objects. So this is going to be Face Bez G1. That's going to be Grill 1. And sometimes I like to kind of color coordinate these. So if the curves are kind of purple on that layer, then I'll make a purple version of that to go with it. I've still got this selected. Let me duplicate these layers and objects. Make that a G2. And that's a blue layer for the G2 curve. So let me make that a bluish kind of layer for that. And I like to kind of gray out my layers a little bit, a little easier on the eyes, I find. So duplicate layers and objects. That's going to be my Grill 3 design. And that's a greenish design. So I have my face bezel, which is the one that's still kind of showing. That's all original. We're not going to touch that at all. So let's just go ahead and we'll switch that layer off. And just to make sure, so Grill 3 curves, I want that greenish kind of a look. Grill 2 curves are bluish, so now I've got a bluish layer there. And Grill 1 curves are purple, so I've got a purplish layer for those. So now I have 3 layers, and we're going to work with all 3 of those. Actually, before we do this, I do want to do one thing. So because we're building this for rendering, it's a little different than you would do for production. So if you remember when we created this face bezel, we extruded a shape into the main body, and we just did a Boolean split. So now we have this kind of a really sort of a thick piece of material here. And if this were in production, this would be a lot thinner than this. And with our grills here, since we're going to be cutting holes into these, and you're going to kind of see into these holes a little bit, I want the plastic where the grill is going to be a little more production ready. And that's actually a very easy way to do this. So I'm going to middle mouse click, and I'll go into my hidden objects, and I'm going to click on Show Selected Objects. And I'm going to choose my red bounding box. Let me go into my front viewport. So I'm going to use this to help me thin out this section. But what I want to do is offset this curve just a little bit, and that'll take care of any of the grill parts that may be slightly outside this shape. So I have the curve selected, and I'll go into my curve menu, and I'll select Offset Curve. And remember, we offset this 2 millimeters from the edge. This time, let's go 1.5, and that way we bring this inside the edge somewhat. Now, that gave me some issues up there, so let's change that. I'll undo that, hit the space bar to reapply, and I'm just going to offset that 1 millimeter. And that's below there, so we won't actually see that at all. That should work out pretty good. I can go ahead and hide that. And now I'm going to take this perspective viewport. I'm going to go to Solid, Extrude Planar Curve. And I'm going to extrude that straight. Just go straight back here. Now take that curve, hide that. Then what I'm going to do is take this shape, and I'm going to do a Boolean split using the face. Let Let me switch off of the face for a moment. So I can throw away this front part, and I'll throw away this back part. And you can see the face of what's left here has that slight curvature that matches our face of our parts here. So I'm going to take that poly surface, and using my gumball, I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to move it back thickness of an actual production piece of plastic. Now, plastic thicknesses vary depending on the design and the intended uses, so you could have a plastic thickness of anywhere 1.2 millimeters to probably 2 millimeters at the most extreme. So we'll just do like a 1.4 millimeter offset here. So all that's done is move that 1.4 millimeters to the back. And I'm going to use this to cut the back out of all of these shapes. So the first thing I'll do, I'm just going to copy that. And that way I can still have my Boolean difference set to deleting the input. And you can see kind of what's going on for this first one. So I take my shape and I'll do a Boolean difference. I'll use this piece here. Make sure delete input equals yes. And then when I press enter, you can see we've made an offset in there. Now the remaining material is 1.4 millimeters thick. So a very realistic material thickness for us. So I'll switch that layer off, I'll switch this one on, and I can just do a simple Control V to paste back in this shape. And I'm just going to reapply these. I'm going to leave the delete input to yes, and that way I can just kind of see what's happening, make sure everything looks okay when it goes. Paste again, take this shape, Boolean difference, using that piece. And there we go. Now I may do one last paste. I'm not going to use this for anything, I'm just going to hide that in case I need it for anything else. I'll turn face G1 on. And let me take my G1 curves. Now that we have all of our bezels prepared, in the next lesson, we'll cut the grill holes.